Okay, so our second learning outcome is how to identify and justify a topic for research, and that is within the services for health and social care. Now, what I usually do is that once I've covered all the third learning outcomes, so once next Saturday when I have covered all the learning outcomes, I normally do a recap. So that's mostly done on the assignment discussion day, so that there's a thing that you have an understanding that this is what you have covered so far. And then we go on to the assignment discussion. So any questions, any queries that you have, those can be cleared there as well. So anyways, so today's session is how to identify and justify a topic for research within services for health and social care. Now, the first learning outcome was talking about what research is, what is the importance of research. A lot of research types were discussed: quantitative, qualitative, how do you do quantitative, how do you do qualitative, the difference between them. And we had discussed how much time does each of these consume, or how many resources do we need for each of these. So that bit was done yesterday. So now we're going to try and identify and also justify. So you've done and you've identified a topic. For instance, if I'm seeing long COVID in in, let's say, patients who are in an old home, for instance, okay, the prevalence of or the frequency of long COVID-19 in elderly patients who are in who are living in shared accommodation. So that's just identifying a topic. But how do I justify this topic? So the topic justification is very important. I can just do any topic, okay? But the topic needs to be justified, and how is it going to be relevant in your setting? So if you're a care worker, your topic should be very close to that setting, okay? And it's going to be easy for you also to work in that setting with your research. It's going to be of good use there. So again, any questions, please, if you can't speak, just write it down in the chat and I'll look into it. Okay. So the second learning outcome is to know how to identify a topic for research within the services for health and social care. Okay, so you're considering the potential impact of research and you're using evidence-based. So we talked about what evidence-based practice means, that you have evidence that this drug has worked or this intervention has worked in a particular environment or a particular setting. That is known as evidence-based practice. Okay, so you have evidence already that this works and this doesn't work. So you're going to use what is working and not what is not working. Identifying potential participants. How do you identify? So what sample size do you want? Who will you see? So if I'm saying I'm seeing older patients, I need to identify those and I need to write down that in my research template that I will share shortly. Research proposal template. And then you have the ethical considerations where you obviously research has to be ethically ingrained. If you have research that is not ethically rich or ethics does not support it, then it is very highly likely that that research will not go forward. And even if it goes forward by any chance, which it should not, there are very less chances that it could be published and or used by any other for any other source or any other use. So the reason is because we depend a lot on research. We spend a lot on research. We have resources that we spend a lot. We have, even your time is a part of your resource, is a type of your resource. So that time, that energy, all of that has been utilized, and then it's not justified if it's not research, it's not ethically clear, okay, or it's not ethically supported. Okay, so if, like, for instance, if you're trying and injecting a drug in like for vitamin D, you've started, there's a new drug that's come into market for vitamin D support. And if you have not got ethical clearance, it is not possible for you to start that project or that research without having ethical clearance, because it is a risk to human life. You could be penalized because of that as well. So ethics has to be there in your projects. Developing a timeline. So we'll talk about how the timeline is developed. So you need to have a clear timeline. When do you start? What do you start with? And when do you plan to end? Presenting potential evidence-based practice study. Okay, and then your aims and objectives, the reasons, understanding, and methods for conducting the research project. Okay, we'll talk about what is the difference between aims and objectives. What do we do with the aims and objectives? Why are they important? Permissions and approvals, consent, confidentiality, and anonymity. So you need to have the participants that will be a part of your study, they need to consent to be a part of the study. Okay, so they need to tell you that yes, we are agreeing to be a part of the study, but that has to be only after you have given them all information with regards to the project. So for instance, if there's a project where you're giving an incentive, for instance, you're giving them a voucher for being part of the study, will that be ethical or not? You're giving the participants, half of the participants that you have in your study, you're giving them vouchers, and half of them you're not. Is that ethical or not? And if yes, why? And if not, why not? Anyone? Hello, is everyone there? Did you listen to my question?
No, can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, the question is like, if you have participants, like you have 10 participants in your study, and 5 of them, you're giving them £10 vouchers for being part of your study. And for half of them, you're not giving them the voucher. So is that ethically acceptable? If yes, why? If
No.
not, why not? Yeah.
No, it's not ethically acceptable.
Why not?
For any research to be free and fair, it should be devoid of incentives, giving incentives.
Okay. So you'd
So
say
that,
that, yeah, so you mean that no one should have that £10 voucher?
yes, nobody should have an inducive approach to getting to research.
Okay. What if you don't have any participants then?
What?
What if you don't have any participants? How would you call them for the study?
Well, excuse me, for me,
Yeah.
yeah, I would say if that you want to give it to everybody, it's better to give it to everybody. Not that you discriminate and you give to some part and you refuse to give to another part. So if you want to give the voucher, it's preferable you give it to everybody, not to say, oh, I'll give it to 5 people, then I'll leave the other 5 people back.
Yes. So
Yeah, and to me, I also think if you are giving, you give to all. If you are not giving, you don't give to all. You decide to award or reward people when they perform well or whatever. You can give criteria.
yeah.
That's what I'm thinking.
Perfect. Any other answer? You know what? You all are correct. So the first answer that I had from
Please, to corroborate what I said, if you are giving incentive for a research to be conducted, the research might be biased.
Yeah.
The responses might be compromised.
Mm-hmm.
So that is why I feel, and I'm of the great opinion, that it should be devoid of incentives.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So so there are some researches where obviously there have been researchers, unfortunately, that have used incentives. Now, for instance, if you want a study, like if I'll tell you about my example. I did a study where there's an anatomage table where we teach, I teach physician associate students. I teach them medicine at the university. So what I did was I divided the students. I just took their registers, and I took like every alternate student was divided. So half of the students were going for just a lecture, and half of the students were doing they were practicing the anatomage table. And then after that, those students were going to have a set of questions that they were supposed to answer based on their understanding. So the students who had the anatomage, it's a huge table. It's just like a cadaver, like a dead body that they dissect on the screen. So that's all done on the screen. So half of the students, they did that, and then they did the test, and they got their score. And half of the other students who were divided, they got the same questions, and they gave their answers. Now, what do you think? Okay, so this was done. How do you think can I strengthen this study? How can I make it ethically approved, or how can I make it ethically sound? Now, you see, if there's a student who learns better through PowerPoint presentation, and there's one student who learns through dissection, okay, doesn't learn better through PowerPoint, that student might have their marks very less. So that means there will be a difference in the marks of all. Okay, you get what I mean? So the students who did very good on the PowerPoint presentation, they were justified, because obviously the PowerPoint, it shows you a lot of visuals itself, and it's a lot more in detail. Whereas the ones who were doing the anatomage table were not very happy, because their questions went not very good, because they were just doing dissections, and based on that, they could not answer the questions very well. What do you think could I have done after this? Anyone?
Sorry, I didn't get the analysis, please.
Okay, so there was a set of students that I took, and I made them dissect. They studied anatomy based on dissections.
Okay.
While there was another group who just did their PowerPoint presentation. So I delivered a PowerPoint presentation to half of the other group. Okay. So the ones who did the PowerPoint presentation were much better on their performance compared to those who did just the dissections. How do you think can I improve equality? So ethics means treating everyone equal. Okay. So if
Equally, yeah.
you have to make sure that it is there for everyone. Either don't give it, or if you're giving it, you give it for everyone. What do you think?
Yeah, I think what you can do is giving everybody a plain level ground.
Mm-hmm.
Not restricting either party to either use PowerPoint or use dissection. Give them, if you know that dissection is the best you can do, use dissection. If you know PowerPoint is what you can use to express best, use the PowerPoints rather than dividing them into two. This set use dissection, this set use PowerPoints. You wouldn't know if the person you keep in dissection part is good in the PowerPoint, and nor the people you keep in PowerPoint prefer to be in dissection.
Mm-hmm.
So if you are given a level playing ground for
Mm-hmm.
them to choose which one is better for them, I think it will go a long way.
Yeah. Thank you for that. Anyone else? That's very interesting. So yeah, I'll just sum it up. I can talk for hours and hours because I am a researcher. So thank you for all for that. Yeah, so what I did was to justify it. I at the end of whatever happened, like the marks, obviously the marks were just to see what helps the students best in learning. So later on, what we did was the group who had taken the PowerPoint was then taken to the dissection part, and the group who had done the PowerPoint, the dissection, had then we had presented the PowerPoint presentation in front of them. So they had an equal chance of going through the whole material, both through dissection and PowerPoint. And what we learned is that neither PowerPoint nor dissection alone is best in your in academics. So it's a mix of both that is ideal for teaching students anatomy. So when you're teaching anatomy, they need to see the patient. They need to dissect, and that only comes through your, obviously we don't have dead bodies at the moment, but what we can do is use this anatomage table, which we did, and it was very successful. And we are in the process of publishing the data as well. So yeah, thank you for that. So on closing note on this point is that if you, first of all, you don't give incentives, okay? So giving incentives means that you're only going to get those patients or those people in your study who want those incentives, okay? So people who are responding in your study, they're only those who are interested in the incentives. So they're probably you want someone in your study who is very rich and doesn't require these incentives. So that person will not bother coming into your study, and probably they're a very good potential patient that you would miss then. So just make it very clear that you're not going to get any goodies, you're not going to get any benefits out of this, but this research will obviously support us, and then it will support you in the longer run where we can improve our services. Okay. So, and then you need to develop your timelines for research. Okay, we've done this. So confidentiality is very important. Every participant that you have in your study needs to remain confidential. The information cannot be shared at any time. Anonymity, so they need to be anonymous. Okay, again, whatever information they've given, that needs to be anonymous from themselves, so that they're not at fear that, oh, my name will be disclosed, I cannot give my name. So that fear should not be there in them at all. Again, with consent, it should be an informed consent. So an informed consent means that you have informed about the study, the benefits and the drawbacks of the study. Okay. And you've told them that they can withdraw at any point in time. So those things have to be informed, and only then the patient or the participant gives you an informed consent. Okay, so they've been informed about the study, about everything about the study, and then they are giving you the consent. Understanding of research, the purpose, aims, and objectives, needs for accuracy and focus of time. Management, recording, reporting, and analysis. We'll talk a bit about all of them. So what is the importance of research? We've already talked about all of this. So it's to diagnose diseases earlier and more accurately, provide life-changing treatments, preventing people from developing conditions, improving health and care for generations to come, ensuring everyone has a better quality of life. I had shared a video link with you. Any thoughts on that? Whoever seen the video?
This is my first day of joining this class, so I wouldn't know if there are videos that have been shared before now.
Okay. I'll just stop sharing this. So I'll start taking your attendance if that's okay. Anyone else, whilst I'm taking your attendance, you were there yesterday, so did you have a look at that video? Any comments on that video? What was it about? Professor Allen. Anyone?
I've not watched the video because I didn't attend the class yesterday, so maybe after the class today I'll go and watch the video.
Yeah. Anyone else? Did anyone else have a chance to see the video? I can't share it again because that's already done. We can't have a look at it again. But anyone else, because everyone had was in the group chat, weren't you all? So yes, anyone who saw it, it was a very small video. I think it might be just few minutes. Yeah. Does anyone want to comment on the video? What was it about? Anyone? Okay, so it was basically about how was research done before? Like how was healthcare working before? So what were the things that were happening before research was there? So we did not know a lot of drugs. We did not know a lot of things about, okay, there's another participant. We did not have ideas of a lot of things. So those were the things that were shared in that video. And it was also shared that research has helped tremendously now that we have got groundbreaking research on almost every treatment, every sort of drug that we use has now been properly researched. Okay, so that was a bit about that video, and it was showing the importance of research and how important research is in changing people's lives and changing the way people are treated medically. Okay, so surgeries were done before without any understanding. So these things were discussed on and then how we do surgeries now, where we know the anatomy, we know everything about the person, and we know what is positive or what is negative with regards to all the treatments and strategies that we have. So those were discussed, all those points were discussed in the video. Okay, that's for about it. So whenever you've been given a task, please make sure that you complete that task, because that is very important in understanding how much you've understood in your in the session. Okay, so a bit about we'll talk about now your research project. Any questions up till now? So there's a research template that is here, that is shared with you over here. We'll have a good look at it in detail. So the most important point is you need your tutor to agree to the research that you're doing. So whatever research that you're talking, your topic, whatever research topic you're agreeing to do, it has to be approved by your tutor. Okay, so you would want to ideally email on at UK Versity, learnerwork at ukversity.co.uk once you have your topic in hand. And once that has been agreed upon, it is then when you start doing your research. So this is the research proposal that you need to submit with regards to what do you want to do in your study. We'll have a look at it, but first, we'll talk about what evidence-based practice is. Okay, so evidence-based practice, it's a process, and it is used to review, analyze, and translate what latest technologies we know about, what latest scientific evidence do we have regarding anything, regarding a treatment, regarding a prevention strategy, etc. So the goal is to very quickly incorporate whatever best available research you have. And this is also this comes with clinical experience. You need to know what is patient preference, and you need to have clinical practice. So whatever you're doing is completely researched. So, and then nurses or doctors or any healthcare professional that you have, they can make informed patient care decisions. Okay, so if it's evidence-based, and that comes again through the research, it needs to be whatever you do, even if it's cleaning a floor, it needs to be research based, that okay, this is what you need to do, this is how you need to make the floor clean, or you need to scrub the floor, how do you need to protect yourself, all of them, that comes from evidence. So it's the cornerstone of clinical practice. So evidence-based practice would require that decisions about healthcare are based on the best available practices, and those that are current, those that are valid and relevance. They are relevant. Okay, these decisions should be made by those receiving care, informed by the tactic and explicit knowledge of those providing care within the context of all the available resources. So, how do we work? How do you get involved in evidence-based practice? You're working in interprofessional teams. So they're professionals that are working with you, and they are from different teams. So there's not going to be just surgeons. They're not just nurses in your teams. They're going to be multiple people and from multiple teams. Okay, so it's going to be an interprofessional team. So what do? You have an inquiry. For instance, you have a question. Okay, and that then leads to what are you practicing? Okay, so for instance, there's an inquiry whether to treat a cough with an antibiotic. Okay, just an example. What is your practice? Okay, so practice, what is your practice? Okay, so what does evidence show? How do you treat that that sore throat? And how does that translate? Okay, so you have evidence. What does that evidence show, and how do you incorporate that in your practice? And then you need to reflect. So this is a constant cycle. You need to constantly reflect. So reflection or reflective practice is very important, where you think about what you've done. If you've done it good, what was it? Or if you can do it better, what are those points? Okay, so you reflect and then you learn and you incorporate that in your practice. And at the end, that leads to best practices, further leading to practice improvements. Even if you have practice improvements, you then again go to reflect. Okay, and then you have more inquiries. And learning out of this cycle also leads to more inquiries. So reflection is a part of almost every practice that you do if you need to do it evidence-based. Okay, I hope that's clear. So ethical considerations. So when we talk about ethical considerations in research, there are a set of principles that would guide your research designs and practices. These principles include voluntary participation, informed consent, anonymity, confidentiality, potential for harm, and the results for communication. So some people would want to know results. Even if they don't want to, they need to know how would they get benefited from that study. So that is when you say that, yes, the results will be shared with them, and they will be a part of the dissemination. You can say that any drug that you're trying and that could harm them, that needs to be informed. So for instance, if it's not a drug, if there's a research that that needs to be filled in regarding an interview. Let's say it's a qualitative interview that takes 2 hours to complete. Now you need to let them know that this would happen, and they need to be informed beforehand. Okay, so otherwise, obviously, it's not informed properly. The consent is there, but there was no information. Scientists and researchers must always adhere to a certain code of conduct when they collect data from others. These considerations would protect the rights of research participants, enhance your research validity, and maintain scientific integrity. Research ethics matters for scientific integrity, human rights, and dignity, and collaboration between science and society. So these principles make sure always that participants, whoever they are in the study, if they are in the study, they're on a voluntary basis and they've been informed and they are safe from all harms. Now you need to develop a timeline for your research. Okay, it's an essential tool. And yesterday I told you why is it important, so that you have a you have a sort of timeline for everything that you're going to do. So you're going to submit your your research template that needs to be covered in that timeline. You need to study about your research that has to be in a timeline. So it makes it easier for you all to understand all the events that are related to any subject in an orderly manner. So in a timeline, you should include the starting and end date of your project and important milestones. You should always make sure that there is a reference to the events that you include in your timeline in your project description. Okay, so this is an example of a timeline. You can take a picture of this also. So let's say there's this Jane Husky who had a timeline for this work. So there was a total project hours that was 350. So the work week was Monday to Friday, 9 a.m. to 5 p.m., 35 hours per week for 10 weeks. I have weekly lab meetings with my advisor to track progress and troubleshoot any major issues. I will also be consulting regularly with graduate students in the lab working on related projects. So let's say these dates are taken. Okay, so this is a timeline. So it's also called a Gantt chart. You can make it on Excel or on Word. So mostly it's Excel that is used. So it's divided into 10 weeks. So your dates come here and your hours come here. So sometimes when you need a vacation, you're not working, you need to mention that also. Okay, so now every week has different milestones over here. So if you're struggling with any milestone, you need to reflect back on it and then come back and work upon it, that you might need to tweak it a little or change it a little. Okay, so I'll just stop sharing here for a reason. Just a minute. So, yeah. Any questions related to the timeline? Please feel free to ask, because if the session ends, it's always good to ask rather than not asking. So always ask. It always is beneficial for everyone. Okay. So yeah, I've shared my screen again. So a bit about how do you present your evidence-based practice study. So this is a study, okay? And you need to make sure that you have these steps in your process for making it evidence-based, okay? So it starts with assessment, ask, acquire, appraise, apply, and evaluate. So the first step, assess the patient. So start with the patient, determine a clinical problem or a question that arises from the care of the patient. Let's say it's bed sores in patients who are old. Let's say, just an example. Ask a focused clinical question where you construct a well-built clinical question derived from the case. It's a clinical question that you have, okay? So it's a well-built clinical question which is evidence-based again, which is researched. Acquire evidence to answer the question. Where you select the appropriate resources and conduct a search. You appraise the quality of the evidence. Okay, you need to know about the validity, How close is it to the truth and applicability? How useful is it in clinical practice? And then you apply the evidence to patient care. You come back to the patient once you've done all the study and integrate the evidence with clinical expertise and patient preferences and apply it to your practice. And then you evaluate the patient's outcome. So you're assessing the patient with regards to any concern that they have or any problem that they're facing. You ask questions which are clinically relevant, evidence-based. You acquire you read through some data where you do a search and find out the answers. You need to see if that is valid and that is appropriate and applicable in your situation. You apply that by going back to the patient, and then you evaluate your how did that impact your patient outcome. Now, coming towards few more slides where we would want to explain the importance of aims and objectives. Why are they important? I just need to see with regards to time. So we have, yeah. So yeah, coming back. Yeah, so what is an aim? So an aim, a research aim describes your main purpose, okay, or your main goal of the project. There's a difference between objectives and aims. So it would help you or your reader to understand the focus of your research, and it would give them an idea of what you are actually wanting to accomplish, okay? And you see it under the introduction. So once your introduction is written, you then write your aims. So an introduction is a brief background about your research, what you want, what you're interested in. Okay, in many situations, the research aim is expressed as a broad statement of the main goal of the study. And it doesn't need to be more than one sentence. Okay, the exact format of the outline varies, and it explains the purpose or the context of your study, your objective, which is your actual aim, and how do you plan to accomplish it. So your plans also have to be mentioned in it, which are actually highlighted in your objectives. Okay, so aims are more broader. Objectives are more specific. The aim should include 3 parts, which address the following questions. So why is the research necessary? What is the purpose of the research, and how will you accomplish it? Okay, so you would want to include all of these in your aim, research aim. What are objectives? So the research aim would define what your study is going to answer, but your research objectives outline how, if you're going to answer something, you want to achieve something, how is it going to be achieved through your research? So that comes in your research objectives. Okay. Those objectives, they break down each component of your research project into smaller portions. So so you might have 1 objective, you might have 2 objectives, you might have 3 objectives. So all those objectives need to be broken down. Each of your research research objectives should be SMART. Okay, what do I mean by SMART? It's specific. Okay, that means it's a mnemonic. SMART is a mnemonic. What I use is SMART, but people use it interchangeably. So specific means is the action you intend to take unclear, or is it focused and well-defined? So specificity means that it's clear, measurable, or accessible. How would you measure your progress, or how would you determine when you have accomplished your aim or your goal? Okay, is there any way to get that information from your objectives? Then is obtainable, or it's also called achievable. Do you have the necessary support, resources, and facilities to execute the project? Okay, so this means if you have a research that would want to you want to see long COVID, let's say, do you have the resources? Do you have the support? Do you have the time? Do you have the manpower? Okay, so that needs to be mentioned in the objectives, that how would you do it? Relevant. Is it relevant now? Does the action you propose support the achievement of your research aim? Time bound. Are you realistically able to complete the research within the given time frame? So you have just 1 week. So you need to mention these SMART objectives there in your when you're doing your project. Okay, I hope that's clear. Then you understand you need to understand the difference between research objectives and aim. So the aim focuses on what the project proposes to achieve. Objectives focuses on how the project will achieve its goal. The research objectives are more specific than the research aim. So research aim is more generic. You can, whereas the objectives are more specific. So that is why they're SMART objectives. Objectives focus on short-term and immediate outcomes, while the aim is a longer-term outcome. It would be best to write an objective as numbered in your list. Research aim can be written in 1 sentence or short paragraph. That's about it. Now we're talking about ethical considerations. We've just got 2 more slides. So the ethical considerations that apply in the area of research. So ethics comes from the Greek word, which means ethos, meaning custom, So ethics is an understanding of the nature of conflicts that may arise from moral imperatives and how best we may deal with them. It deals with the choices that we make and our actions in relation to those choices. Medical ethics would deal with the choices made by the society, the distribution of resources, and access to healthcare and the dilemmas arising from them. So ethical considerations in research are a set of principles that would guide your research, design, and practices. These principles include voluntary participation, informed consent, anonymity, confidentiality, potential for harm, and results communication. We've mentioned these already. Okay, and these have also been mentioned. So in healthcare, what ethical considerations would you consider? So conflicts of interest need to be mentioned. Guidelines have been proposed for standardized ethical practice throughout the globe. 4 fundamental principles are anonymity, non-maleficence, means giving no harm. Beneficence is giving the benefit to the patient, but that benefit should not be in monetary terms just like we had mentioned. And justice. So it needs to be justified. Whatever you are doing needs to be justified. Okay. Coming towards this last slide, and then I'll share the template with you. So SWOT analysis. Please read out a document that has been shared with you on Moodle. So I had mentioned a little bit about the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So that's SWOT analysis. That's very helpful in the area of research. So for instance, if you're doing a research on COVID-19, you talk about what strengths do you have? You have good funding, you have good manpower, you have good support from your seniors. That's some of your strengths. What are your weaknesses? Your major weakness here in this research project would be that you have to end it very soon. Okay, you don't have enough time because research requires a lot of time and you have to submit it in 2 weeks' time, so that it becomes hard for you. That's one of the weaknesses. Opportunities. So some opportunities may be here, such as you have you somehow have some funding from somewhere. That may be an opportunity. You may apply for some study leaves in your workplace. That may be an opportunity that might come up. So look out for those opportunities and mention what threats do you have. You could have a threat that your research project might not work well, or it might not end as you have planned it for ending. So just have a look at this handout. It's very helpful. These are some of the resources that you can have a look at. Please do use them because they will help you in writing down your research project. Again, your work would have to be submitted on learnerwork@ukversity.co.uk. I'll just go back and I'll talk for the rest of the time on this. Let's stop sharing. Any questions? Does anyone have any questions?
Sorry, please, to ask. When are we submitting the projects? And are we submitting the topic first, or how do we go about it? Thank you.
Yeah, so this is your research. Thank you for that question. Yeah, so your research template is here shared. So first you work on this research template, okay? So I had actually sent you all a task where you would want, I had wanted you all to work on some, on understanding what type of research would you want to do. Or we recommend you to do secondary research where you would have a research project that has already been published, and then you go and analyze that project. Okay, so that is how we would want you to do your research. So you're not actually taking participants, you're actually just analyzing a report. So I'll just start sharing my screen. So first, your first aim should be to work upon this research template. So I'll just start sharing this. I hope this is clear. So your research template. So this is your research proposal. I hope it's clear. So for instance, your name would be coming here. So this is this template has been shared with you already. Okay. Your name will be here, your title. So this is your title. What makes us healthy, for instance? An introduction to the social determinants of health. This is your topic of your research. What is your role within the organization and how are you linked to your proposed topic of research? This is one question. Okay, so you need to answer this question within your research proposal. Okay, it is only when you get your research proposal approved, it's only then when you need to then start collecting data and submit it. So all of this has to be done in 2 weeks time. Okay. So as soon as you can send your research proposals in, they will be approved or not, and then is your next step. Okay. So as a student there's an example given here. So as a student researcher, I have chosen this topic of what makes us healthy, and this is going to be the area of research that I wish to undertake for the completion of my unit assignment. Okay. Then you need to state the aims and objectives of your research. What is your aim? So you're aiming to do social determinants. You're asking if social determinants play a role in the individual's health and lifestyle. Your objectives is more specific. Okay. Why is good health important? What influences health? What can bring about changes in health and the social care system? And then your purpose of the research. Okay. So which will be your background or introduction. This will be around 30 to 50 words. This research proposal has to be submitted before you do your research project. Okay, your research project will be discussed later on in your assignment discussion. So this is just an example of how do you do your research proposal? How do you propose the research? So it has to be accepted by the tutor before you do it. I'm giving you an example of I hope that's clear. You'll have this document there on on your Moodle page as well. I'll start now quickly sharing how you can have access to research topics. So when we say that you need to do secondary research, you have this website there. Okay, I'll just share the link with you as well. Yeah. So these are, I've sent that in the chat. Please copy and paste this and keep it safe with yourselves. So this is all where your topics are being mentioned. So you have a list of all these topics. You can, for instance, just go to risk factors, for instance, or you can go to any other topic that you, it's not letting me open up right now. So however, when you open it up on your own end, you will have a list of all the projects that are there, and you can then have an understanding of what do you want to do. Okay. And you can talk about their objectives, that what their objective was, what their aims were. So that is known as secondary research. Okay. So obviously what you won't copy and paste their work, you will just reference it. Okay, whatever you are doing has to be referenced, and that is Harvard referencing that you will use. And just have a look at the these slides will be shared with you. The video will be shared with you of this